guys, this is Jonathan Baldauf with Politics, Pups, and Pints. We don't have any pints today, but we have some politics and we have a pup. Branches over there. I'm Jonathan Pine with the Idaho Vanguard, and this is Michael Fitzgerald, Ada County Commissioner candidate. This is a new project, and one of the reasons we really want to do this project is this year with the Idaho State Legislature, it's been a bit of a disaster. We have some bills to ban fish and game from private land. And we're moving to sell those resources at the same time. So Fish and Game won't have any control over the wildlife that we now basically privatized. We have bathroom bills, and we have $22 million in cuts to the Idaho Public Criminal Defense. Really, we have greeting, we have whining, we have moneyed interests, and we don't have things that are solving problems for the people of the state of Idaho. There's chaos everywhere, and frankly, I think we're all tired. And it shouldn't be that way. Politics shouldn't be a dirty word. It's a republic. It's our duty to make sure we manage that republic. And the Idaho that I know leaves people alone and helps them when they need it. And I'd like to get back to that. I'd like to make sure that our public servants are doing just that and serving the people of the state of Idaho. So this is how we're going to do our small part. We want to make sure that the people who are running for office and the people who are out there leading us, what do they believe? What is actually going on? And what can they do to make the life of the average Idahoan just a little bit better. This is a nonpartisan project, the Idaho Vanguard, but I do expect an open and honest conversation, and spoiler alert kind of note, I am the treasurer for Michael, so I'm going to be a little bit biased, so I hope that if I get a little bit too biased, Pine will hold me to account. I'm obviously joking there, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. As part of that duties, I'm also going to tell you that Michael's website is Fitzgerald for Idaho, the number 4, idaho.com. So, with that, Pine, you got anything to add?
Not at the moment, except, Michael, what are you running for?
I'm running for the Ada County Commissioner's Office. It will be running as seat 2, which is against Rod Beck. The county commissioner's office is big. It covers all of Ada County. So it's kind of confusing, but it's set up in each district for who can run. But the entire county votes for each seat on the commissioner's office table. So it's a big race right now. There's only 2 seats that are open. There's Rod Beck, who I'm running up against, and then Ryan Davidson, who's in seat 1. And so, that's what I'm going for, and I'm really excited for this race coming up.
What the heck does a commissioner do?
Well, that is a big question. They are kind of that silent seat that controls pretty much everything in the county. They handle zoning laws, they handle funding towards jails, sheriff's department, any sort of county controlled department or something that's working in the county. The commissioner's office is the one handling the budget for those organizations.
So prosecutors elected.
Yep.
Sheriff's elected.
Yep.
You manage the money.
Yes. So if the sheriff that's elected is wanting to hire a couple more deputies, the coroner's office is wanting to hire some more techs, that is all requested through the commissioner's office. Which has been difficult because they've had a hiring freeze for a while. But
who has?
The current commissioner's office.
Entirely?
Not entirely. It is just very restricted, so they can't do any hirings by themselves. They need to come through the county at the moment to get approval for each individual hire. So they're not really doing blanket budgets. It's more like, so this last year, I believe it was 3. The sheriff's department requested like 6 new deputies. And the sheriff's department, or the county commissioners, was like, no, you can only hire 3. And so they've been pulling back on county resources in order to hire in people to be able to run the county when it's getting bigger and bigger every year.
That seems like it would be a problem for especially given the rapid growth we've seen here in the Treasure Valley, that not being able to hire more deputies to compensate for growth seems like it would be problematic.
So it's kind of twofold, because short term it sounds really nice, because they have been able to lower property taxes and everything because of those freezes and keep those property taxes minimized. The issue is is it's unbalanced, because the way that they were able to do that was, one, from limiting how much people can compensate for the growth that we've had in the county, and two is they've been taking money from the state, about $99 million last time, to compensate the lack in taxes, which is great when the state's in a surplus constantly, but with this recent legislation, we are way over budget, and so cuts are coming. There's not really going to be a surplus, and so that's when we're going to get, the county is going to really feel the heat, is when the money from the state stops coming in from those overages.
And presumably that means money from the county is going to have to be taken from elsewhere for like road repair and things like that, is going to have to be funneled into other projects. That
would be a way of doing it. There's either that, or they're going to be forced to raise the property taxes, which they've been pushing really hard on, only keeping property tax raises fairly minimal, and so it could definitely snowball into a bigger issue later on down the road.
Let's dip into that. What is the relationship between the county commissioner and Ada County Highway District?
So right now, it's pretty tense. The issue is that the commissioner's office handles zoning, permissions for like developers who are building in the area, all of those things. They're the ones that handled approvals for new neighborhoods, subdivisions, all of that. The ACHD is the one that handles the roads and the infrastructure getting to those subdivisions. And so when we develop too quickly, the ACHD can't keep up, and then there wind up being problems. So ideally what would happen is we would avoid that bottleneck, and we would actually work together between the developers, the county commissioner's office, and the ACHD in order to grow steadily, instead of having these bursts and pockets pop up and then they get snapped up right away, and then it becomes issues. And so that is something that I want to do when I'm elected, is I want to be able to reach out to the ACHD and get an agreement together and a growth plan that will actually be doable, instead of this pushing each other as far as we can and then not being able to keep things running smoothly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
So I worked for a roofing company. I recently left that company, and so now I'm campaigning and taking care of my wife and 2 kids at home at the moment.
How long were you in roofing?
I was in roofing for 6 years, and then I was in HVAC for 4 years.
So tradesman the whole time?
Pretty much, yeah.
How are the trades going in Ada County right now?
It's a mixed bag. It is booming as far as new construction goes, but because of the way that the economy's been going right now, it's been pretty tight-fisted as far as residential work that's not new construction. People are getting by, they're trying to do what they can, and part of that is pushing off repairs, pushing off new units. I will say, a lot of the people that are working and building our houses right now aren't able to afford the houses that they have, just because of the cost of living and how much they're making. It creates a tight environment for everyone.
Well, when we talk about zoning laws, like what are some of your policy ideas to put forth to help deal with the fact that Ada County in particular has a lack of housing, like affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
We have a lack of housing that doesn't require a minimum to, decent incomes. Houses that entry-level housing is basically non-existent at this point.
Right. And so that is something that is a difficult difficult problem to solve. The biggest issue is like the county commissioner's office only has so much power over housing pricing, and so a lot of it comes from developers, supply and demand, all that kind of stuff. I will say that if we are wanting to fix some of the housing issues, what we need to do is we need to start building denser and not pushing into our public lands quite as much, selling those off. That is a problem that we can't, once we pour the concrete, we're not getting those lands back. The farmlands are normal nature, everything like that. So that's something that we have to be careful of and be protective of. But at the same time, the commissioner's office, what they can do is they can help fund low-income housing and housing developments and apartment complexes, things like that, closer into the city limits that allow for people to get on their feet, get some more, have a stable house, and be able to actually build their life instead of starting from the dirt and not being able to get out. As far as the housing and zoning laws go, working with the developers in order to lower their costs, but also with the agreement of how much they're going to be charging and how much we allow for the cost of housing to rise. We can put on limitations, things like that, but that requires a lot more departments than just the commissioner's office. So it is a tough place to be right now.
Yeah. So why are you running for Ada County Commissioner?
That is an excellent question. So I am married. I've got 2 kids, 3 and 2, Parker and Davy. They're the best. And over the last couple of years, I have noticed a distinct change in Idaho. I grew up here my whole life. I was born in the Boise St. Luke's, grew up in Kuna, south side of the tracks, so we're like the 3rd house out there. And what I've noticed is this distinct change from the Idaho that I grew up with to the Idaho that is here now. Growing up, there was all these opportunities and ways that we can excel here in the state. And now what I'm seeing is people moving away because it's too expensive, people unable to get the help that they need because of CARES and mutual aid programs getting cut. And as somebody that's raising my kids here, that's just not something that I can stand aside and watch with good conscience. And so I'm running to protect that future that I grew up with, that everyone here in Idaho grew up with, and it's something that I care about deeply, and I want to stay here, and I want my kids to be able to grow up here and raise their families here if they want to, not because they're priced out, but because they choose to stay or they choose to leave, and that's their choice kind of thing. And so that's the biggest reason why I'm running, is just to make sure to protect that future for them.
So in Idaho's experienced a massive amount of growth in the last 5-10 years. It's exponential. And so with that comes a serious housing crisis, in which it's almost impossible for new people to get into the housing market. How do you as commissioner intend to deal with the issue of growth versus sustainability versus actual housing availability?
Right. And that is something that seems to be like a hot topic right now, is the cost of living as well as like growth. Like everyone's like, the houses are too expensive, but we shouldn't grow anymore. And it's kind of this catch-22. Like you have to have both, or you have to have one fold at least a little bit. And so what I'm wanting to do is work on growing denser in order to protect the lands that we have, our public lands. Because the fact of the matter is once we pour concrete on it, it's not going back to the farmland or the public land or the parks or the hiking trails or anything like that. It's just gone. And so we need to be very careful of where we're pouring next, while also recognizing that we need to pour and we need to do these things and build in order to take in all of these new people that are wanting to experience Idaho. And so the housing costs is something that I would be working with the ACHD and the developers in order to facilitate starter homes coming back to Idaho, and making sure that that growth isn't just trampling over what makes Idaho Idaho at the same time.
And then obviously, like, with that growth comes, growing pains, of course, and things like that. But as Ada County Commissioner, what are your thoughts, or what are your ability to impact the use of our infrastructure to facilitate energy growth and the ability to support and sustain the fact, all of these houses and all of these new buildings, which of course brings new business, which is great, but all of that leads to increased energy consumption. Yeah. How do we deal with that? how do you deal with that in the office of the commissioner?
Yeah, so something that was just built last year was a natural gas collector, for lack of a better term, to simplify it down, a natural gas collector at our trash dump yards. And what it does is it takes the methane and all the gas that comes off of those trash heaps, takes them, cleans them, and then puts them back into the Idaho gas and power lines in order to go back into the people to maintain the loads that they've been experiencing with all of this growth. So utilizing more natural methods of production and harvesting that power is essential for this growth, and that's something that the county commissioner's office works with. The other side of things is I know there's been a big restriction on like the solar farms on private land, places that they're wanting to put some in, and they've restricted it even though the people that own the land want it. Those regulations have skyrocketed as far as restricting what they can and can't do on their private land. And I think that loosening up those standards would be beneficial, while also maintaining, the reason they did it was to protect the farmlands and protect like seed growth and all that kind of stuff. But the steps that the farmers need to make, or the people that own these private lands need to make in order to prove that, hey, I want to sell this and it's not damaging to the Idaho, is excessive. And so I would like to relook at those regulations.
So deregulating some of the things that are hindering our ability to become energy self-sufficient.
Yes, and looking at the wider opportunities that we have in order to basically ease the cost of how much it costs us to power our houses, heat them, cool them, and run our tap water and showers and stuff without worrying about the pressure on our wallets.
So
I want to talk to you about two topics. We talked about transit, and I want to talk to you about public safety.
Okay.
Let's start with transit.
So that is actually a big weak point in Ada County. There was just a committee on funding our transit and how we can operate that better. And basically the idea was no one uses it, so we're not going to give it money. I think that's the wrong approach, because of course no one uses it. Their bus systems are unreliable. The timing for them is atrocious. They're not convenient by any means. But it's not the transit system's fault necessarily, because they don't have the money to be able to run buses on a steady schedule and to be able to have enough buses that you're not sitting there waiting for 2 hours before the next bus stop. And so I know plenty of people that would utilize the bus system, and it would open up their job opportunities if the bus system was well funded, but they can't because it doesn't fall in line with what they need to be able to work, or it's not reliable enough for them to be able to base their job off of being able to get off the current bus system and transit system. And so I would like to look over the funding on that and basically put additional funds into our transit system so that it can be usable. This is beneficial in two ways. One, it's beneficial because it eases up on traffic. If you have 10 people on a bus, that's 10 less cars on the road. That is huge. So, because Idaho obviously has a traffic problem, and we don't want to be like LA, where we're sitting in traffic for 3 hours trying to get to work.
We don't want to just suck carbon monoxide for half an hour?
No, not that either.
I don't know if you've ever tried to get from downtown to Meridian at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Eagle Road, avoid.
Yeah.
Avoid.
And I live right next to Eagle Road, so it's kind of a weird.
You're running for selfish reasons. Then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
Just want to fix Eagle Road.
I agree. One of the things that's a real problem here in the valley is our public transit is virtually non-usable.
Yeah.
I'm out in Meridian. My partner does not drive, and the bus only comes out there twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere near, and it's still a couple of miles from our actual house.
Yep.
So there's no real way, and it stops running at like 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you're working the third shift at a hospital, or if you're working a swing shift anywhere,
Right.
that basically makes it not usable for you.
Absolutely.
So that, I mean, I agree. I think that needs some serious reevaluation.
Right, and I've heard plenty of people bring up like the issue of like, well, what if the bus stop is half a mile away? Which, first off, like half a mile is not that far to walk. But for those that have a tough time with that, we can work with other companies, like for instance, like the Lime scooters and bikes. They have programs to work with buses to store them next to the bus stop, so then you can go to your house, drop them, and then they come pick it up and all that kind of stuff. And they get discounted rates if you have a bus stop pass. And so these are the kind of programs that we need to be looking into in order to help people actually utilize our transit system, which helps with, as I said, the traffic. And it also helps, as I said earlier, with the job opportunities that people will have, because they can actually go and look for work instead of just in their block. And that's something that will open up more people to be able to work, and also open up businesses in the area that people would be going to if it wasn't a little over a mile away from them and they can't go and shop at that spot or buy their products.
What about light rail and rail? There's some pushes recently to do those. Do you have any thoughts?
So I know we used to have like a trolley system way back in the day.
And there's literally in Nampa, there's a roundabout that has a trolley right in the middle, which is
Don't they do the old trolleys converted to do tours here in downtown Boise?
They do that too, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they still do that?
They
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
But there used to be a trolley that ran from
Yeah.
Boise, I think all the way to Caldwell, right?
Yeah, it did. And I'd love to see that, see something like that brought back. I think that we need to focus more on the buses first, and then we can look at further options that are more of like a permanent, effective way to get from city to city. But right now, like, we need to prove that transit in Boise and in Ada County in general can work, so then we can look at those better options later. But right now, like, buses are going to be the most inexpensive upfront aspect.
Random note, don't ever forget that the car companies bought up all the trolleys in Southern California, especially LA, then tore them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me for some reason.
Okay, so public safety. I'm going to ask it broadly. I am a criminal defense attorney, so I'm going to ask probably some more pointed questions about that.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on public safety?
So, the county kind of has a unique role as far as public safety goes, because while they don't have any sort of direct control over, like, they stopped this bad guy earlier, they do have control over the budget, which in turn supports all of the public safety officers, police departments, sheriff's departments, all of those kind of things. And so, and the jailhouses, the county jailhouses, they have direct control over with the funding there. So recently, there's been kind of a change. There was a big push for housing first a number of years ago, but recently there's been a change over towards what's called treatment first, which is where you try and get them drug free before you help them with anything else. That's difficult because I always look at it kind of like somebody with a broken leg. You have a broken leg, you're addicted, you've done whatever. You have a broken leg. And so you're trying to get it better, you're trying to heal it, but somebody's coming over and shaking it around constantly. And the low-income housing programs that help with people to keep them out of these kind of situations acts as a cast on that leg. It protects it, keeps it stable, so then they're not sitting there jarring it, re-breaking it over and over again. And it gives them the safety in order to avoid those kind of problems. And so, if we're able to take care of people when they're sick and able to help them, then that helps with public safety. Because there's less people addicted to drugs, less drug trafficking, all those kind of things inside the area. The second part of that is our jails. And right now our biggest struggle is we have overcrowding in them. Really bad. Really bad. Part of that is the amount that the state has been dropping off at the jailhouses, specifically like during when they're transferring prisoners from to out of state. They'll drop them off at the jailhouse, keep them there until they can arrange the transport, that kind of stuff. The other aspect of it is we have programs kind of like ABC, and that those kind of programs are specifically there because judges, what they'll do in order to avoid sending somebody to jail or prison for years and years and years, what they'll do is they'll take these programs and they'll be like, okay, you have to complete this program, you have to stay in jail while you're doing it, but once you complete the program, you're out, you're good. Like, you can go. They're either like on parole or they get let go, those kind of things, which you all know this because what you do. But what the issue is right now is, on average, people that are assigned to those programs are staying in the prisons for 60 to 90 days, even though it's a 30-day program. Mm-hmm. And so we're keeping these people in there, and there's this big old backlog because they're not able to get through the program, and so they're staying longer, which it costs about roughly $147 a day to keep somebody in our jails. And so you're keeping them in there, and then they're getting backlogged. They're in the system longer. Their life gets fall apart more because missing a month and missing 3 months is a big difference. And so then they wind up getting out way later than they could, and now they're starting even further down the track instead of being able to start again 30 days later. And so if we can cycle that through and fund those programs, give them the space to be able to get people through and filter them through faster, then that frees up space in our jail cells, means it so then we can have less restrictions there, and it will allow for people to come out and not be as inundated into our system as they would before, allowing them to become regular people in society instead of victims to a system that couldn't get them through. And so that's a big part of it. And as far as even further into public safety, I think that there has been a lack of motivation to get the sheriff's department up to date on the current growth that Idaho is facing, specifically in Ada County. They're not getting enough people, enough deputies, all these programs and trainings and all of these things that they need in order to accommodate a population growing this fast. When they're understaffed, more dangerous people are able to stay out on the street longer because they're not able to get to them. There is higher risk of violence between officers and suspects because they're not able to have as much backup as they would request or as they should. And it limits the amount of officers and forces officers into overtime longer. And so there's longer days because they don't have the support staff that they need. And so I think the county can work better with the sheriff's department as well as the coroner's department in order to facilitate a safer Idaho, a safer Ada County.
There's one other question regarding that. I said 20 questions. You covered a lot of territory.
Sorry about that.
I'm a rambler. I appreciate people have thoughts about what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, it's clear to me that you've done your research, right? So that's admirable. We have SAP and ABC.
Mm-hmm.
There are two programs, kind of the main two programs in the jail. We also have some AA, some church programs, those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Would you be in support of additional programming at the jail?
As long as we are able to effectively push or help people and be able to do it in a timely and effective manner that they can actually learn something and it's not bottlenecking and we're keeping people in jail longer just because they need to take this course but we can't facilitate it and so they're sitting in there for an excess amount of time, then that's when I have reservations.
So it needs to be effective, but it also needs to be in a position where you're not keeping people in just for that program and spending money in the jail for that.
Exactly. Because alternatives, because I know so there's kind of a couple reasons why there's these bottlenecks. One is because of funding. Like, they need staff. It's a staff-heavy program, and they don't have the money to be able to hire more people in, and so it's tough. Secondly is space. I know they're limited to the jail cell or jailhouse most of the time, And so there's not as much space because of the overcrowding. They're limited on where they can hold these classes. I would like to implement a program where we can, for like minor first-time offenders, people that are like low risk, all those kind of things, where they can take these classes off-site, which would be beneficial because we can get more people through, and it would limit the amount of time that people would be sitting in these classes or sitting in those jail cells.
So effectively have it, we have this program available. It's going to be a 2-year probation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Essentially, which I know some programs already are like that. You have to take like an anger management class, things like that. And I would like to see that brought in even further for safe people. Now that does get sketchy with some of the programs because there are like people that are in jail because of like domestic violence, things like that. And so like non-violent offenders would be preferable for that system. And I would have to work with the sheriff's department and the jail and local county courts in order to figure out exactly where we could implement that system and who would qualify for those programs.
So speaking of county courts, it's an odd kind of change. Give me your closing argument.
My closing argument
why should voters vote for you?
That is an excellent question. And I have 2 points for that. One is because I'm going to pick what's right for Idahoans, regardless of party line, regardless of tax bracket, what's right for Idaho over whatever party I'm running under. Like that's a big thing, is I don't care, home over party every time. Secondly, is because unlike a lot of our current legislation, like I want to be around and I want to make decisions that I am going to see come out in 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years from now. I want to make programs that aren't just beneficial in the short term. I want it to be beneficial for everyone way down the line. Instead of looking in the short-term profit and trying to get as much money or scrap of as much as we can for my individual term, I want it to be something that is beneficial for years to come and generations for Idaho. And so those were my 2 biggest focuses.
Well, Michael, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Hope you guys learned something. Hope you had some fun.
Sorry for all of this technical lingo.
We love it. We got to geek out about this stuff because it's, we got to run the republic.
Yeah.
We're good.
We've got to inform people. That is the job at the Idaho Vanguard, is to make sure that people are informed.
A lot of information.
It is a lot of information, but that's why it's recorded. They can watch it again.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Michael. We really appreciate it.